A number of you asked about divorce and sealings and what happens if we've been to the temple and what happens if someone isn't true to their temple covenants and what does that mean for our marriage, what does it mean for our children. This is kind of a complicated subject and I'm going to be brief. But here's a principle I want you to remember. If you are faithful, personally, no one can block your exaltation. A husband can't, a child can't, an enemy can't, nobody can. One of the great blessings of the gospel is we are assured through our agency our own exaltation if we are faithful. Inherent in those questions are the idea that, well, if my husband isn't faithful, has he stopped my salvation? Has he stopped my exaltation? He cannot do that. It's not possible. It's not in the plan of God. It would be terribly unfair if I could stop your progress, or you could stop mine. Okay, so if that's the basic principle, then let's talk about the details. One of the questions was, my husband, we were divorced, and he passed away. We were sealed, and so I'm still sealed. And yet, some of the men in the church are uneasy about dating me or considering marriage because I'm sealed to someone else. Okay, that marriage, if you were divorced and there was that lack of unity, that lack of a marriage covenant, that sealing can be canceled. All of this is done by the First Presidency of the Church. They alone handle cancellation of sealings. But that would be understandable where there was already a divorce. But let's say now, I'll add to the question, what if there wasn't a divorce? What if the husband was faithful, but he's still passed away, and the woman is alone, and the men are uneasy about marrying a sealed woman? I would encourage those men and that woman to marry, and to not worry about the sealing, because we even have a policy in the church that when everyone is deceased, when everyone's dead, the first husband, the second husband, and the wife in between, when they're all deceased, she can be sealed to the second husband also. And you say, well, who's she going to be with in eternity? I don't have the slightest idea. But God does. Same kind of question you could ask. I'm a wife, I'm faithful, I keep my covenants, but my husband doesn't. Well, what happens to him? I don't know. But he probably is not going to be sealed to her if she's faithful and he's not. And so you can ask the same question. To whom is she going to be sealed? And I do not have the slightest idea. But God has all of these things to work out. Let me give you an example. It'll help you understand this doctrine. My childhood friend, Anna Laura, marries my childhood friend, Burton. They are married for 9 months. She's 6 months pregnant, and he dies on the operating table of a defective heart. She's left a widow at 23, and 3 months later has a baby. She lives alone for 2 or 3 years. Along comes my other friend, Bill. Bill dates Anna Laura. They fall in love, they get married. But Anna Laura is sealed to Burton, and she doesn't want to break the sealing. She doesn't want a cancellation. He was faithful. He's the father of her first child. She doesn't want to be unfair to him. But what does Bill do? They're not dead, so he can't be sealed to her yet. But like I told you, I tell them, get married. Trust in the Lord. They did get married. They had 6 children. And Bill raised those 6 of his children and Burton's child, all 7. But, my friends, my hermanas, to whom are those children sealed? The first one and the other 6. They are all sealed to Burton, because that's where the sealing exists. Bill is not sealed to Anna Laura. Imagine the faith that he's had to use to say, my own children are sealed to someone else. Well, you know what you do in a case like that? You do what obviously you would do, what you should do. You trust in God's goodness. When there are questions, to which we do not know the answer, then you trust in what you do know. And what you do know is that God is good and fair and just and merciful. He is not going to deny those children with their father or that father with his own children. How he works it out, it doesn't matter. It's not your problem. God will figure it out. Look, he has to bring the flowers up every spring. He has to keep the planets in their orbit and the solar system working. If he can do that, he can take care of your family. He can take care of a father and some children. Trust in God and know that these sealing arrangements can all be worked out and that no one's action can block your exaltation. All of this is handled by, as I say, by the first presidency of the church. And what you do if there's a question is you visit with your bishop and stake president. They write directly to the first presidency, and the first presidency gives counsel. But don't be fearful. Don't be afraid something's going to be wrong. Don't be afraid that you're going to be tricked or fooled or disappointed. There's an answer to all of these unusual arrangements with a sealing or a divorce or a death.